I'm going to tell you a statistic that might alarm you a little bit if you're interested in getting into franchising. 1 in 3 franchises either fail, close their doors, or sell within the first 5 years. So that means if you and 2 other buddies are going into franchising, one of you aren't coming out alive. Hey everyone, welcome to Courtside Conversations. My name's Emile, founder and owner of Little Boomers Basketball, and it's a pleasure to be your host today. Wherever you're watching today's episode, I hope you're having a booming day, and yes, the pun is intended. My journey to entrepreneurship started on May 1st, 2018 when I launched my first basketball program with 9 kids enrolled. Today, thousands of kids across Australia are thriving in our programs, all thanks to the commitment and passion of our incredible franchisees. This podcast is here to give you real, straightforward, no BS insights into business, entrepreneurship, and what it's like to own a franchise. Without further ado, let's get into today's episode. I'm going to tell you a statistic that might alarm you a little bit if you're interested in getting into franchising. All right, get ready for it. And this is not coming from me, by the way. This is coming from the FCA, the Franchise Counsellors Australia. And that is 1 in 3 franchises either fail, close their doors, or sell within the first 5 years. Just process that for a second. 1 in 3. So that means if you and 2 other buddies are going into franchising, one of you aren't coming out alive. And you know what the scary thing is about franchising? It's not as easy as selling a car, for example, where you put up a Gumtree listing and you find a buyer. Selling a franchise has got a lot of steps involved. A lot of people don't make money when they sell their franchise because it's not performing well. Or even worse, they don't make any money because the agreement is terminated. The other day I was in a shopping centre and I was speaking to a franchisee at a pizza restaurant. I won't name who it was, and he wasn't happy with how things are going. And when I said, look, how's the support from head office been? How's the marketing? He's like, look, head office are always doing continuous marketing campaigns, discounting pizzas on Tuesday, buy one, get one free. And us as a franchisee, we need to follow whatever guidelines head office give. By the time we give all these discounts to the pizzas, people are coming in and getting the pizzas. But after all the discounts, as a franchisee, we're left with nothing pretty much. And he was quite upset. So in this video, we're going to talk about the 5 reasons why franchisees fail so that you can know them, make sure you don't make these mistakes, and stick around to the last one because it's the most important one from the 5. Reason number 1 is adopting the employee mindset. When you're coming into a franchise, if you're coming from corporate life, you've got to let go of your employee mindset and put on your business hat. You are now a franchise owner. And unfortunately, a lot of franchisees don't make that transition. They still think that they're a 9-to-5 employee. With business ownership, I'll give you a classic example. Let's say you're an employee at a retail store. Customer comes in, you greet the customer, you serve the customer, and hopefully you get a sale. As a business owner, you need to change your thinking. Instead of thinking, okay, I'm an employee, I've got to greet a customer, you're thinking, how can I get that customer to come into the door? What marketing, what special offer, what promo can I do to bring that customer into the door? And unfortunately, not many people change their mindsets. Reason number 2 why franchisees fail is misaligned expectations. And unfortunately, this does stem from the franchisor. Let's say you and I were having a discovery call. Hey, John, it's Emile. Good. John, look, if you come in with the first 6 months, you're going to make 100 grand. We've got systems. You don't have to worry about doing anything. We're going to have somebody do admin. We're going to have somebody do local area marketing. And you're on the phone thinking, my God, 6 months, I can quit my corporate job. This is amazing. Then you come in and you realize, oh, geez, nobody's touched base with me since I've signed the agreement and paid the 55K. Where is everybody? I haven't even met a franchisee. When do I start my training? I'm trying to contact Emile. He hasn't returned my call. What's this? I need to do marketing. What's this fee? A setup fee? I didn't know about this. Disaster happens. Misaligned expectations. Always make sure before you come into a franchise, to avoid any chance of failure, speak to franchisees. I like to say a minimum of 5 franchisees. The other day I was speaking to a lady and she was telling me that she's run some hypothetical profit and loss numbers and she wanted to run them by me. So I said, okay, what do you have? I've calculated, Emile, the court hire fees to be about $200 an hour. And then I said, whoa, hold on. Your numbers are really off. And so I said, where did you get those numbers from? Oh, look, I assumed. Never assume. I've created a franchise profit calculator where you can input real numbers, court hire fees, coaches' wages, how many kids you have in the program, so you can find out what your potential profit is per class. Click the link below to use the calculator. I hope you find it useful. The third reason is not investing time into the franchise. Now, this one sounds like a no-brainer, but it really isn't. I'll give you a classic example. I was speaking to a gentleman a couple of weeks ago, call him James. He was so excited to come into this franchise. If I had an agreement ready, he probably would have signed it then and then and paid the investment. But as me being a franchisor, it's my job to make sure expectations are aligned. So when we started to talk about the time commitment of the franchise, how are you going to put 20 to 30 hours a week on this franchise? He thought about it. Oh, I said, look, let's touch base next week. After that 1 week, when I called him, he was like, look, I've got a kid. I'm doing homeschooling. My wife's currently working. I can't see where I'm going to put the time into this franchise to grow. And you know what the most tricky thing is when I'm speaking to people? They say, look, I'm going to keep my full-time job. I'm going to have a franchise on the side, like a side hustle. I'll wait for that to grow. And then once that's grown, I'll leave my corporate job. But that is counterintuitive, because if you're waiting for something to grow, to take over your primary job, it's not going to grow. It's impossible to grow. Unless you put in the time into the business, it's not going to grow. And unfortunately, when a franchisee comes in, they give whatever time is left over throughout their week onto the franchise, and it doesn't grow. And if you've got kids, right? If you've got another full-time job, if you've got other responsibilities, you're quite time poor, which means you're going to have to figure out where to get this time from. And unfortunately, a lot of franchisees don't. The fourth reason why franchisees fail, and this is a very important one that not many people talk about, is poor unit economics. Take, for example, that pizza restaurant I gave you. Yes, he had all these customers coming in. Revenue was high. People are purchasing. But after he took away his cost of goods and services, COGS, he was left with nothing. As a franchisee, after he paid his royalty fee, his head office expenses, his training fees, he was left with nothing in the bank as a franchisee. That's an example of poor unit economics. And we see a lot of people in franchising marketing saying, hey, you'll make 100 grand in your first year. You can't be fooled by that, because what if from that 100 grand, you're only left with a 5% net profit margin, which means after all your expenses, you've got 5 grand in the bank. Are you still appealed? Are you still appealed by that 100 grand in your first 6 months? So you need to make sure you understand the unit economics of the business. Revenue, COGS, cost of goods and services, gross profit, net profit margins. If these all sound foreign to you, it's time you pause this video, jump on Google and do a bit of research about the unit economics of the business. And the fifth reason and final one of why franchisees fail, and this one is by far the most important one in a franchise network, and it's actually two categories: poor systems and inadequate training. They make or break your franchisee success. Let's start off with training. Training falls under two categories. Your initial training, call it your onboarding. This is usually done at a flagship location or at another franchisee site. This is your first training where you're learning how the system and business works, and you're pretty much learning the foundations that you're going to use for the next 5 years. And the second one, and this unfortunately is the one where a lot of franchise companies don't invest in, is ongoing training for franchisees. You constantly need to be investing in ongoing training in your skills, in new technology, in new trends, especially in the busy world that we're living in. Now, what do I mean by poor systems? A franchise is a system. There needs to be a go-to hub in any franchise network for you to achieve something. You want to go to marketing? Here, we've got our marketing templates. You want to learn how to onboard and recruit your first team member? Go to here. You want to learn how to send a proposal to a company? Go to here. There needs to be a central hub where you as a franchisee can go to for every element of the business. In our company, we call it our franchise resource center. We've got operations, finding a venue, coaches, all the important pillars of our business. And that brings us to the end of the 5 reasons why franchisees fail. Drop a comment below. Let me know which reason you found insightful. And if I missed one, or you think that there's one there that I didn't include, drop a comment. I'm keen to get your thoughts.